Welcome to From the Therapy Room, a space where we slow down the noise of the world and listen gently to the deeper conversation happening within us. This is not a space for quick fixes or surface level motivation. It is a space for psychological honesty, emotional depth, and compassionate understanding. Hello, I'm Jyoti, a psychotherapist and a clinical psychologist, and a founder of Chetna Mindfulness and a mental health community named Root, which is rooted in reflective and mindful living. Through my work, I sit with human complexity every single day, with grief, longing, fear, love, and the quiet courage it takes to grow. And in this space, I bring those conversations with you. Before we go deeper today, I want to slow down and gently name what we are actually speaking about today. Today, we are going to talk about something many people struggle in a very silent manner: self sabotage, but not in the way it is usually spoken about. What we call self sabotage may simply be a younger part of you trying to survive a world that no longer exists. So, when we say self sabotage, what do we really mean actually? In simple terms, self sabotage is any pattern in which we interfere with our own well being, growth, or success, but often unconscious manner. It is when we say we want something, but our behavior moves away from it. Something like we long for intimacy, yet we push people away. We desire success, yet we procrastinate. We crave stability, yet we create chaos. It is not usually loud or dramatic, it often looks subtle. Delay, withdrawal, overthinking, picking fights, losing motivation at the exact moment things begin to move forward. Psychologically, self sabotage is rarely about self hatred, it is about self protection. And that distinction changes everything here. Because if we misunderstanding self sabotage as a weakness, we respond with shame. And if we understand it as a protection, we respond with curiosity. And curiosity opens the door to healing. Over time, repeated self sabotaging pattern can create a painful internal narrative. Something like, I can't trust myself, or I always ruin things, or I'm not capable. This erodes our self esteem. It increases anxiety. It can deepen depressive feelings. And there is often a quiet grief underneath, grief for life that feels just out of reach. So many people live in a loop. There is a desire, which leads to an attempt, and then there is a withdrawal, which leads to shame, and which shame leads to renewed desire, which leads to fear, which again leads to withdrawal. So this is a kind of loop, and there's so many people who keeps, they start living in this loop, this circle kind of thing, and the shame become heavier than the original fear. But here is what is important to understand, that the psyche does not create patterns without any purpose. Even painful patterns once served survival. Let's try to understand self sabotage in a different manner. So, to understand adult self sabotage, we often have to listen to its childhood origin, from where it originated actually. In childhood, self sabotage does not look like procrastinating on a business proposal. It sounds more like if I shine too much, I'll make someone uncomfortable. Or if I speak up, I'll be criticized. Or if I succeed, expectations will rise. Or something like if I need too much, I'll be rejected. So a child adapts to the emotional climate around them. If love felt conditional, the child learns to perform carefully. If visibility brought criticism, the child learns to shrink. If success triggers envy or pressure, the child learns to underachieve just enough to stay safe. If closeness felt unpredictable, the child learns to detach first. So these are not conscious decisions, they are nervous system adaptations. The child's mind is brilliant. It scan the environment and ask one primary question: what do I need to do to stay safe and connected? And whatever answer it finds becomes a strategy. And those strategies do not disappear simply because we grow older. Rather, they stay with us. So, in adulthood, the language changes, but the emotional logic often remains the same. Something like, I will start tomorrow, or it's probably not worth trying, or they will eventually see I'm not that good, or maybe something like, things are going too well, something bad will happen. We call it procrastination. We call it commitment issues. We call it imposter syndrome, self doubt. But underneath, the nervous system is often responding to an old template. Growth is equal to risk, visibility is equal to exposure, success is equal to pressure, and love is equal to vulnerability to loss. So when something meaningful approaches, I mean, this is how our mind think, uh, because it's still we are responding to our old template. That's what I'm trying to explain it here. So when something really meaningful approaches, like a promotion, a deep relationship, a creative expansion, the body reacts not only to the present opportunity but to past memory. And this is where the idea shifts. Self sabotage is not random, it is patterned, and patterns are learned. So try to understand, because we need to see that when this, because our nervous system is trying to protect us, but when this nervous system became, or when this protection become limitation, we need to understand. Imagine a child who learned that being invisible reduced criticism. In that context, invisibility was protective. Now imagine the same person years later longing to share their voice publicly. The desire is real, the talent is real, but when they try to step forward, anxiety floods in. They delay posting, they edit endlessly, they decide the timing isn't right. At times it looks like a lack of discipline, But psychologically, we'll see it's an outdated survival strategy activated. The mind says, last time visibility hurt. Let's stay small. The tragedy is not that the protection exists, protection is intelligent here. The tragedy is when protection becomes rigid. What once kept you safe now keep you limited. But I don't want to speak about it as a flaw, like what it is really and what way it is coming. I don't want to approach it as laziness, immaturity, or lack of willpower. In the therapy room, when we slow things down enough, self sabotage always never reveal itself as self destruction. I'm trying to take a different approach here, different perspective I just want to share with all of you. Like I said earlier, it reveals itself as a protection and often very intelligent protection. What we call sabotage is frequently a part of psyche that once learned something very important. Growth can be dangerous. And if that sounds traumatic to you, please stay with me. Because the nervous system doesn't respond to logic, as I have stated earlier, it responds to memory. Not the memory you consciously recall, but the memory your body carries. Like I have stated one example earlier, also, I'm trying to bring another example. Let's try to understand and try to see that what really happens within our psyche and within our nervous system. So, let me begin with something very common. Like a person works towards something for months, something years, a new project, a relationship, a promotion, or something like this, something that really matters to that person. And as the moment of expansion approaches, submitting the proposal, launching the idea, or deepening the intimacy, something inside them shut down. We procrastinate. We suddenly feel tired, distracted, overwhelmed. I know I have talked something like this earlier, but I'm just trying to expand it a bit more. So I'm taking another example here. They recognize their desk instead of sending the email. They scroll instead of finishing the chapter. They pick an argument instead of enjoying the closeness. And then comes the shame. What is wrong with me? I mean, we can hear these kind of inner voices within us. Why do I always do this? I ruin good things. But if we pause the judgment and gentle inquire, what is happening here? A different story begin to unfold. Procrastination, especially around meaningful things, is rarely about indifferences. It is often about significance. The more something matters, the more vulnerable we become. To try is to risk failure. To hope is to risk disappointment. To succeed is to risk visibility. And visibility is not neutral for everyone. So, if at this point in your life begins seen lead to criticism or punishment or increased pressure or emotional withdrawal, your nervous system may have learned that standing out is unsafe. So, when success approaches, the body does not interpret it as opportunity. It interprets it as exposure. And exposure in a system shaped by earlier wounds equals to danger. So the protective system activates. You delay, you downplay, you withdraw, you forget, you rationalize, not because you don't want the life in front of you, but because some younger part of you remembers what happened the last time when you were visible. This is where self sabotage begins to make sense, not as pathology, but as adaptation. And psyche is not trying to destroy you, it is trying to prevent pain. I remember sitting with a client who had just received a major professional opportunity. It was everything she had worked toward, and yet, the night she got the news, she had a panic attack. She told me, I should be happy. Why am so terrified? As we traced the feeling back, it became clear that in her childhood, achievement came with enormous pressure. Success means higher expectation, less warmth, more security. So love felt conditional on performance. So her body had learned a very specific equation. Achievement is equal to pressure plus withdrawal of safety. So when the promotion arrived in adulthood, her rational mind celebrated, but her nervous system remembered. This is how the past quietly inhabit the pattern. And when we do not understand this, we attack ourselves for reactions that are actually deeply coherent. So self sabotage often intensifies when things start going well. That is not coincidence. Stability can feel foreign to a system shaped by unpredictability. Peace can feel suspicious, love can feel really temporary, and safety can feel like calm before abandonment. So sometimes people leave relationships just when they begin to feel secure. They create conflict when intimacy deepens. They lose motivation when momentum builds. On the surface, it looks so irrational, but intentionally, there is often an unconscious strategy at work. Something like leave before you are left, or disrupt before you are disappointed, or lower yourself because someone else does. I mean, this is not self hatred, this is a preemptive protection. You, you're not fighting yourself, you're outgrowing a version of yourself that once kept you safe. This is how, if we are going to take a look at it. So when protection, procrastination and the fear of significance starts coming, how things change actually. Notice how often we procrastinate on what matter most. We we rarely delay what feels trivial. We delay the book that could change your life, the conversation that could deepen intimacy, the application that could expand our career. Why we do that? Because the more things matters, the more vulnerable we become. If I don't try, I can preserve the fantasy of who I might have been. Or if I try and fail, the fantasy is going to collapse. So in this way, procrastination protects identity. It protects us from confronting the possibility that we are human, we are imperfect, we are still learning. And sometimes it protects us from success itself. So, as I said earlier, you're not fighting yourself. You are trying to outgrow that version of yourself that kept you unsafe. And at times, like I said earlier, success can feel unsafe because success brings visibility, and visibility brings evaluation, and evaluation reactivates our old wounds. So if a child, or as a child, praise was followed by some sort of pressure, and if achievement increased expectation but it has decreased warmth, if standing out trigger criticism, then the success will not feel purely joyful. It will feel activating. Some people experience this as sudden anxiety when something good happens. Others downplay their achievements, often create conflict right after receiving some recognition. Not because they don't want success, but because their nervous system has paired success with threat. This is not irrational, it is associative learning. The brain is designed to detect patterns. If we if two experiences were repeatedly linked in the past, achievement and emotional stress, the brain connects them. And unless the association is updated, it continues to operate. One of the most painful form of self-sabotage appears in our relationships. Things begin to feel stable, predictable, and safe, and suddenly restlessness appears somehow. And you question the relationship, you focus on minor flaws, you create distance. Often this happens because stability feels unfamiliar. If your early experiences of love were inconsistent or engulfing or emotionally volatile, then intimacy may not feel natural to you. So the nervous system often prefer familiar discomfort over unfamiliar peace. So when peace arrives, it feels suspicious. And again, the protective system activates. Leave before you are left, disrupt before you are disappointed. It is primitive move against anticipated brain. And if we are going to look at it psychodynamically, what we call self sabotage is often supported by defense mechanism, a structure the mind develops to manage anxiety and protect self coherence. Rationalization is one of them. It allows us to reduce emotional discomfort by reframing reality. When something doesn't work out, instead of feeling the grief or inadequacy, we tell ourselves it wasn't that important anyway. So this reduces emotional intensity, and it preserves self-image. It softens disappointment. And another defense mechanism is avoidance, which allows us to lower anxiety in the short term by not engaging with threat. Something like this: if looking at the bank account triggers anxiety, you don't look. If sending the message risk rejection, you delay. Avoidance reduces immediate discomforts and our nervous system calms temporarily. But long terms, the unaddressed realities grows heavier and heavier day by day. And then there is another defense mechanism, emotional numbing. Sometimes, when something matters too much, when the stakes feel too high, the system simply dampens feeling. Excitement flattens, desires dull, connection fades. Because if joy is intense, the potential loss of joy feels catastrophic. So the nervous system narrow the emotional range. These defenses are not evidence of weakness. They are evidence that at some point feeling fully was overwhelming. Now, I want to speak about something even subtler: loyalty. I mean, these mechanisms are not moral failing, they are regulatory tools. The problem arises when we become automatic and rigid, and when we operate even in environments that are no longer dangerous. So I think the unconscious loyalties to old identities, I mean, that is also embedded in it somehow. Because there is another layer that is more philosophical and deeply human. There is often what I named it unconscious loyalties and old identities. We become attached not only to people but to identities. The responsible one, the struggling one, the quiet one, the strong one. I mean, these identity formed in relationship in our environment. They helped us belong. Growth sometimes threaten belongings. If I become more confident, will I still fit into my family system? I mean, these kind of questions, they somehow just pop up in our head. Another question: if I become more successful, will I distance myself from root? Or if I become emotionally expressive, will I disrupt the role I have always played? So, growth can feel like betrayal here. If you become confident, do you outgrow the family narrative? If you become successful, do you separate from those who remained small? Or if you become emotionally expressive, do you disrupt the role you were assigned to? Sometimes self sabotage is not fear of failure, it is a fear of separation. Because we are human beings and human beings are wired for attachment. Belonging often precedes authenticity. So, if authenticity threatens belonging, the psyche chooses belonging because that's how it feels safe, and that I'm not betraying on anyone, I'm not betraying to the old identities. But because we fear separation, even if it means shrinking. And belonging is a powerful force here. Philosophically, this reveals something profound about human development. We are not simply driven by achievement, we are driven by safety and connection. If expansion threatens either, the system hesitates. The part that sabotage is not malicious, it is protective. It says, I remember what happened when we grew too much. And here is the crucial shift in healing. We do not eliminate this part, we update it with less power. And it has not yet realized that you are no longer there. Because healings become the process of integrating time, bringing your nervous system into present, letting the body learn through repeated experiences that success does not always equal punishment, that visibility does not always equal humiliation, that love does not always equal loss. So, what do we? I think the major question which must be arising in your minds also. So, basically, what do we do with all this? First, we shift from accusation to inquiry. Instead of asking, why do I keep running things? We ask, what is this protecting me from? This moves the nervous system out of the threat mode because shame intensifies defensive behavior. And when we have compassion, compassion softens it. So, healing self sabotage is not about forcefully pushing through fear, it is about gradually updating the protective system. You teach your body through repeated experiences that visibility does not always equal humiliation. Success does not always equal pressure, or love does not always equal abandonment, but this take time. It required tolerating small expansions, finishing something imperfectly, staying present when things feel good, and allowing yourself to receive appreciation without deflecting. Each time you do this and survive, the nervous system recalibrates. Protection becomes flexibility, limitation becomes choice. If you recognize yourself in these patterns, I want you to say something gently. There is nothing fundamentally wrong with you. The part of you that withdraws, delays, numbs, or disrupts is not trying to destroy your life, it is trying to prevent pain. It hasn't just realized that you're no longer the person who first needed those defenses. And perhaps the work now is not to silence that part, but to sit with it, to thank it, and to slowly show it that growth no longer equals danger. And this is where true expansion begins, not in self criticism, but in integration. So, if you recognize yourself in these patterns, I want you to pause gently. There is nothing broken about you. The part of you that withdraws, delays, numb, or disrupt is not your enemy. It is a protector that learned its roles very well. And perhaps now your work is not to fight it, but to simply update it, to let it know that growth has no longer equal danger. You're not fighting yourself, you're outgrowing a version of yourself that once kept you safe. Again, I'll repeat the same thing. Thank you for sitting with me in this space. This has been from the therapy room where we meet ourselves not with judgment but with understanding. Until next time, be gentle with the part of you that is still learning that it is safe to expand. Next time, from the therapy room, I'll be sitting next right to you. Take care.